adjustable based on where they find those gaps. So there would be some field work in terms of environmentally, like environmental assessments. They are also looking at climate models. So how drought, for example, might impact not just water supply, because we have looked at that before, and that's something that they will assess, but how it can affect the ecological integrity of the lake itself, particularly like with relation, for example, to nesting birds and how the varying water levels might affect that. And then they are also gonna, once all of that work is done, they'll do a risk assessment. So they'll look at the variety of hazards and risks in terms of contamination, climate risks, quite a few different things. And then we'll do another workshop with knowledge holders to make sure that risk assessment is accurate. And they'll make a series of recommendations on how we can manage the watershed moving forward. There'll be components of adaptive management. So, we'll only do these things if certain thresholds are met, for example, like in terms of contamination. Some of those recommendations play around planning. So different bylaws we might want to implement, or different regulatory tools for things like, for example, septic maintenance. If we determine that that's where, a lot of the contamination is coming from, or different limitations we can put on or ways to develop around the lake that are more suitable for a place that's in the watershed. And then things like how we run our utilities. So for example, the functioning of the dam, how do we make sure that those water levels are being maintained so that the the integrity of the lake is being maintained.
So the other question that I'm getting is, I don't think it's all being charged in Kobe water system. And because it's a water source, and that's probably why you're doing all this work, why are they not paying for this?
So through the chair, I believe that we had 25% allotted to the Kobe water system. And so that would be for, I guess, mostly the portion looking at the drinking water supply. But the study is really for the entire watershed and for the park around it. So it's going to make recommendations on how we manage the park. That's a big part of it. And the park would belong to the entire island. I think that, sorry if I could just expand a little bit. I think the other thing to maybe note is that once we have a management plan for this entire watershed, it's the kind of work that can be repeated in other watersheds. So it really does have that island-wide kind of aspect to it.
Over to our CFO.
Just to confirm what the manager of Parks Planning just said, in 2025, there was $25,000 contributed from Cove Bay to the Parks Reserve Fund in order to help fund this project.
Councillor Getty.
When I'm looking at this, excuse what you've repeated, it seems to be as a highlight of a lot of the material that's in this RFP. So there's 6 full pages from 12 to 18 with respect to all the background deliverables. That would help people understand the extent of it.
They don't like to read things, that's the problem.
I'd like to move the motion as written, that council award the contract for the Grafton Lake Watershed Management Plan, BIM RFP 2025-02 to Urban Systems for $100,000 excluding GSC.
Moved by Councillor Fest, seconded by Councillor Getty. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I will call the question. All in favor, raise your hand. Say aye. Aye. And that carries unanimously. We are now at business arising for minutes 6.1, motion deferred from the December 8th, 2025 regular council meeting regarding the Heritage Commission establishment bylaw repeal and external organization implementation.
12.9.
Oh, apologies, 12.9, that's right, there's one more item. The Ocean Watch Action Committee, re January 9th, 2026 meeting notes. Over to you, Councillor Basil.
Thank you. I just wanted 1 minute to give a brief update. This is a committee of the Howe Sound Biosphere and the community roundtable that's been established for 25 years around Howe Sound. So this is the action committee that I've been appointed to as Carlos Hughes, Director of Parks Planning and Environment. So since we're both there, I thought I should start reporting. And so this is just quickly in your, there's a link in there at 12.9, just a couple of highlights. Hardened shorelines are one of the things they're going to be looking at coming up. With the king tides in West Vancouver, there's seawalk between, I think it's like 15th and 25th. We saw a video from one of those tall apartment buildings down on the seawalk with the waves all crashing over it. And that wasn't even a wavy, windy storm. It was just a high tide, just a king tide. Anyway, they're having to raise their whole seawalk there 1.5 to 2 meters, and they're running into all kinds of costs relating to having to close the seawall and then patrol it and monitor it because people still want to go out on their seawalk. And anyway, a bunch of issues there relating to effects of rising water levels and the effects of hardened shorelines. So just wanted to bring that to our point. On to whales. There's a whale report alert system that shipping uses. And BC Ferries does not use this because they haven't been asked to. Although the wood fiber LNG vessels going back and forth do use it. I was on the BC Ferry back, I think it was November, when the ferry had to come to a stop just outside of Snug Cove as 3 humpbacks came up and the flukes went up right in front of the ship. It was fantastic. But I didn't, and also in the past 6 months, there was a dead whale. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's ever been determined. But at that time, it was reported that it may have been a vessel strike. So I wondered if council would like to perhaps suggest to Carla and I that we bring up the idea of a joint letter from communities around the Sound, or whether we just want to write a letter on our own suggesting that BC Ferries use the whale report alert technology if council thinks it's important. I can bring that back another time. I'm just doing a quick report here. Clean Coast Bill, MP Weiler is amending the, it's got a private member's bill to amend the Wrecked and Abandoned and Hazardous Vessels Act in Ottawa. And so you might want to keep an eye on that, and maybe we will want to have some input to that. I think it's just had first reading or something. It's in an early stage. And there's an education kit. I just wanted to flag for anybody with kids in school or for any teachers that might be, as if they're watching. But, you know, there is lots of good education kits at the Howe Sound Biosphere website. And for students who might want to learn more about our marine surrounding, our saltwater moat around our island. Thank you. There's more in the notes. I just wanted to give a few highlights.
And perhaps motion to proceed.
Oh, yes, I move that we receive.
So move to receive this item for information, seconded by Councilor Lake. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries unanimously. Now back up to 6.1, motion deferred from December 8th, 2025 regular council meeting regarding Parents Commission establishment bylaw repeal and external organization implementation of the BIM Parent Strategic Plan. To our Deputy Corporate Officer who's joining us here today.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for taking the time to consider. I don't have a presentation prepared, but I would just provide a brief overview of what's been happening. So in 2024, Council completed 3 years, a 3-year process of a committee governance restructure and directed staff to dissolve separate committees, combine a couple of them, and make various adaptations to the suite of committees. December 2025, staff got down the list to the Heritage Commission piece of that suite and brought the repeal bylaw forward for council to provide readings as was directed. At that time, staff also suggested a more robust and binding relationship with Heritage than the MOU that had been directed, and recommended a community collaborative services agreement. I think in response to contributions from members of the Heritage Commission and Museum and Archives, council directed staff to conduct research on community heritage commissions, CHCs, which was completed and is in your package and is the same as what was provided in public comments today, that there are none in BC. Rossland was the closest, but was not the same. Just a reminder, staff has suggested also binding protective bylaws for heritage assets on Dillon Island, such as heritage conservation areas and other development permit ideas. Ultimately, staff is passionate about heritage and hopes the council makes the best decision about what they're going to do moving forward with heritage. That will be the most efficient and effective way of protecting our assets. I just want to make a note of clarity. There was mention of a budget that existed for Heritage Commission as a previous council commission. There was no budget. There was $200 in the planning department's budget that we would use. I think it was $200 every 2 years even, so maybe $100 a year that we would use to try to make a Heritage Day. It's not a lot of money for a Heritage Day, but Heritage Day landed at Family Day, or Heritage Weekend landed at Family Day. So we would be able to collaborate with the rec department and make a little heritage piece. And so we were able to make those small funds work. In staff's report, staff recommended $2,000 to go to Heritage based on request from Heritage Commission members. But it has been suggested that perhaps $5,000 would be a better number for that. I look forward to your discussion. Thank you.
Ms. Short, I will open up the discussion to council. Just a process clarification to the corporate officer was, I cannot remember if the original motion was moved and coming back as a moved and seconded motion, or whether the whole item was deferred.
The motion itself was deferred.
Okay. That's the original.
No.
Thank you. So speaking, who would like to, Councillor Jurgensen to start? Followed by Councillor Jurgensen.
I care deeply about heritage and I think a service agreement model without having a bylaw that encourages future councils to do those referrals to that commission would be a mistake. I don't have a problem with there being a services agreement, but I do think that's important to have some protection in there and bylaws somewhere. Services agreement and bylaws both can be amended, but the process is different. I think that is where it's greater protection for ensuring that heritage, continues to be preserved on the island for perpetuity. I also do feel that there is a need to use more of the tools that the deputy corporate officer has mentioned about heritage conservation bylaws and things of that nature to protect assets as well. Though I realize that's a discussion for another day.
Thank you, Councillor Jurgensen. Councillor Hayden.
Okay, I have 3 points that I'd like to make in terms of both heritage values, the expertise and interest and motivation of staff and or an outside agency in terms of taking responsibility, and the process that we're following. So I don't think there's disagreement with respect to the need to, and we've all agreed in a number of occasions in terms of the need to reduce the our bureaucracy, you know, this is a municipality that has something like 24 committees and, you know, the full-time work of the staff to just organize meetings and send out polls and get people to answer polls and to take minutes and to, that was completely unworkable. As much as we, and I personally like working on the committees and working with people in the community and getting their feedback. I understand anytime I've had to organize a meeting, it's really difficult. It's very frustrating and it's a poor use of staff time. And I think that our staff have done an enormously wonderful job of it over the years, and it's important to take that off the table. So ultimately, you know, I think when we look at the existing bylaw and what we're repealing, what we need to do is extract section 4, 5, and 6, all of the bureaucratic stuff. But the mandate and the objectives that are in this bylaw are still really good and strong. And I think that there's, you know, we have to figure out some way of keeping, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and keeping some sort of control over the message that we want to send and what it is, what our values are. So the implementation plan that has been attached to this and the chart in terms of the committees and groups that were being removed. Under Heritage Commission, there's a list of things and that, and there wasn't any particular order, but staff reach out to the museum and archives and DIPA to determine interest and capacity, develop an MOU, communicate with committee members and public communication plan, and then repeal the bylaw. So we've done the communication with all of the different committees, and we're now at the stage of, repealing the bylaw. And I think there's a missing step there in terms of figuring out, developing an MOU, participate, whatever the working agreement is that we have with Birch, the partnership, what the terms of what it is that we want to maintain. You know, we want to be able to have the input and referrals and get information back and forth so that the expertise that's in the community that doesn't exist in council or staff or you know, any of the resources that we've got at hand. People have to spend a lot of time researching and digging in. And I've spent most of the weekend reading through the Local Government Act and the Community Charter, and that's a hard slog. And I could, you know, spend half an hour putting you to sleep in terms of going through all the little nuances and like Heritage is mentioned in all of them. But I think that we really need to use the resources of people that are passionate about this, that can keep us on top of both when something is coming up in the community. You know, this group of, in addition to the register, if there's 80 properties that are on an inventory that have or may have some sort of heritage interest, I think that it's important to be able to support that and maintain that and understand what it is, and hopefully have a system ultimately, ideally, where the planners have some way of knowing that when something comes in with respect to a property, let's say, for example, real possibility of the CNIB coming in as a property that has some heritage interest. So I think that that's something that this community cares about, would want to thoroughly debate and would want to have some input. So, you know, there's Enswell Farm, there's a Potomance property, there's several, I don't know all the 80 that are on this list, but there's, you know, I think of OPA. And, you know, whether or not we want to figure out ways of protecting things. That's what this legislation is all about. 597 is one thing that's written into setting up a community heritage commission as one way that's in the legislation. It's not described, it's not defined, it hasn't been done, nobody did. So if we're going to break ground and figure that out, it seems to me we've got a clean slate and we can adapt and figure out how it fits, if it fits, if it does, if it's not 143, you know, is it something that's akin to what the regional districts have for commissions? Is it something that, you know, we need to get advice from the ministry on in terms of if we do this under the heritage part 15, is that going to be acceptable? Because all sorts of flexibility in that.
Right.
Okay, so when we get back to this implementation plan, I'm not sure if it's proper or reasonable, but I would maybe repeal part of the bylaw and leave the objectives and mandate and let us get some time to focus on and figure out what it is that we want to have. This subcommittee within the Museum and Archives. I think it's important to understand that one of the things that's happening here is that the Museum and Archives have been able to bring, and the commission to begin with, been able to bring together all of the different people that live on Bowen that have an interest in heritage. That's monumental. That has taken 30 years to get to that point, and it's important. And I'd hate to lose that kind of energy in terms of having Museum and Archives support this subcommittee that is going to work on heritage, whatever we call it, whether it's a commission, whether it's a subcommittee, whatever. And I think we need to work through some of the complications. If we delegate, it has this kind of, it reverberates into this, and whether or not they have to follow our open meeting procedures, or whether or not that could be a specific exception within our procedure bylaw. All the different ways I'm trying to figure out. Nobody really wants all the strict bureaucratic open meeting kinds of results, but at the same time, if there's going to be a complaint about anything that has been recommended by the Heritage Commission and it goes to the ombudsperson or it comes to council as an appeal, they have to have a clear record of all of their dealings. So part of the requirements in terms of minutes and possibly we'll want to have some control over people that join the committee that may or may not have a conflict of interest and how they declare that, much as we did with I believe the housing committee. You know, just we need to spend some time figuring out what it is that we want and how we want to set it up. So if we repeal this bylaw, full bylaw, all of it, I think we lose the opportunity to fine tune it. And I think what we're trying to do at this point is to take the load off on staff to accept that there is some interest in the community that can be supported and that we focus on how to best get there. So the 3 points, the fundamental values. Bowen Island believes that heritage has value. We've got a rich and wonderful heritage that we could exploit. All of the visitors coming over and looking for heritage value are easy visitors. So it's, you know, they're not motorized bikes up and down Lombard. They're wandering around with cameras. So we have supported this with respect to both the Heritage Strategic Plan and the Heritage Registry. We need to know the Heritage Register. That's a huge conversation. We need to provide this inventory to the planning department so that they can give us the option of asking for more detail, possibly a notice, possibly referrals, some sort of process. We need to, I think, support and solidify what we're talking about in terms of the motivation, expertise, and interest that exists in the community, that exists in this, whatever has been concocted between BIPA and M&A, the Museums and Archives, in terms of this subcommittee that they've got, which I think is really important. It's difficult for that to be a delegation. It's difficult for that to be a designation. It's difficult for that to be an appointment. We're not sure what the legal structure could be. And the legislation and the Heritage, BC Heritage, and I don't know if anybody's contacted the provincial ministry, but there's no guidance because it's never been done and it's so poorly defined and it's so vague. So we may be breaking new ground, and I think that we can imagine that we can come up with something. The bottom line seems to me that if there's some sort of a formal designation of a group that has the interest and the expertise and is able to do homework, is interested in doing homework, they come into council, whatever the future council is, whatever the problem is, and they say, I'm here representing this subcommittee. this special interest group. And it's not, it's something that gets respected by council. It's something that has a little bit more clout than just somebody coming in from the community without that kind of designation. And I think the process is that we can decide at this point how a way of getting it off, the burden off the staff, and still continue with trying to work out what we want in terms of an organization. So I'm opposed to the I'm sorry, the repeal, unless there's amendments, and I propose prepared to make those amendments to remove all of the
Thank you, Councilor Getty. Councilor Fest.
Thank you. And thanks for all the work that's been done on this and your weekend and all that. I did a little bit of work on it too, consulted my files. I'm thinking about it over the long term. I have Davy's Orchard file that goes way back as well. Some of your notes are in it. And I don't know. I actually do support the motion, and here's why. Because I think the need for a community heritage commission is less now than it was in 2015 when the bylaw was passed, the commission establishment bylaw was passed. That was the time when Metro Vancouver was proposing to not do anything for the cottages except remove them, is the Davy's Orchard cottages, and there was a frosty sort of future for heritage on Bowen, on Metro Vancouver Parkland. Anyway, that's different now. They've restored a couple of the cottages, the museum cottages opened. Apple Fest came back in a small way. It's starting to sprout again. And now we have a heritage register. Now we have, which granted 10 properties, we're a small island. Now we have the list of beginnings. Now we have the Heritage Strategic Plan, which this is only the first couple of pages, but it's a 30-some page document, like the Parks Plan, provides guidance. Now we have, and I assume that will feed into the official community plan update that's happening now, since we've adopted the Heritage Strategic Plan, but there was already heritage in the OCP, and we also have, sorry, I'll be briefer, the Islands Trust is also there to help protect heritage in a couple of limited ways. There's two directives related to addressing the identification, protection, preservation, and enhancement of heritage and historic coastal settlement patterns and remains, which brings me to another part, which is heritage is changing identity a little bit in that cultural heritage, including archaeology and First Nations interests are now coming into being, and I think we need to adapt to that. And I had one other one. Anyway, I just think the point about reducing committees was the agreement among all council members. And I think we should just go through with what staff have recommended here, that we pause the commission, repeal the bylaw, see how it goes. I mean, I appreciate working with museum and archives, and that we're going to provide them with a little bit of funding. And thank you to everybody over the past 10 years that this has been working away and getting to this point. And now, as we do with the Bowen Island Conservancy for the nature side of things, and with other groups that we have agreements with, I think this is a new era in the municipality as well, where we're kind of reducing the committees and maybe freeing up a little bit of volunteer time back out to the community groups who can help us with the work. Anyway, that's what I think. And so thanks very much to everybody, and I think we should just see how it goes, and I'm in support of the recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fest. I see Councillor Lake, Councillor Morris, and Councillor Jurgensen. I'm gonna hold off on for second time speakers.
Thank you. Your Honor, I agree with Councillor Fast. It seems to me we've got a choice here about we keep the bylaw, but we take all the stuff out that we don't want to have fall on staff, all the bureaucratic stuff. Or the other option is to take the bylaw, which take the parts of the bylaw that we do want and build those into the service agreement that we're gonna have. And as Councillor Fast has pointed out, we do have a similar arrangement. We have a partnership, partnering agreement with Birch. We have, it's an MOU with the Conservancy. So these arrangements seem to work well. And I'm just not sure what the big, we seem to have plenty of interest in heritage. We're still gonna have those individuals working under the umbrella of Museum and Archives. I suspect there'll be volunteers there as well. So, I support the recommendation.
Councillor Lake, Councillor Morris.
So I was just moving back to like, the Local Government Act was amended. I mean, our bylaw, we established the Heritage Commission under Part 27 of the Local Government Act. And Part 27 of the Local Government Act doesn't exist anymore. And I can't find the old one, and I forgot to bring that binder. I don't know how many other, so there's only one Heritage Commission.
It's not really, it's
The
not,
one in Roslyn.
yeah, it resembles the Heritage Commission that we have.
Yeah.
Um,
But so what is
now.
the city of Vancouver? I thought I kept hearing.
so the piece around council designating an existing external organization, designating them as a Heritage Commission is the legislation offers that power.
Yeah.
And that power has never been used before. No external organization has been designated as a Community Heritage Commission.
But looking at the Local Government Act now, whatever the part is, they talk about community heritage commissions.
Yes,
But no local government has their own community.
Have not
heritage
done that.
agreement. So Boston is the only. Yeah, and the city of Vancouver has a Vancouver charter, so that's a different deal entirely.
again, I think Roslyn is very similar to ours. It was like council recruited, appointed, elected, wrote the terms of reference, and their advisory to council. The phone number on the webpage for the Community Heritage Commission of Roslyn is the municipal office.
So I was just trying to understand that nobody, I mean, this Community Heritage Commission versus Heritage Commission. That nobody had just a Heritage Commission underneath their legislation.
You mean at Heritage Commission as an advisory body to council?
Yeah, as a committee.
I think some do, but should be on the list.
So what doesn't exist is there's only.
The
one
community heritage, the external organization designated as a Community Heritage Commission as something.
But there are other heritage.
Yes, several. Yeah,
Because that doesn't seem to sort of be
that was the direction.
no, I was trying to figure out. I mean, I think we do need a committee, and I don't know how many other communities have two heritage organizations like we do. And whether, that has been a conflict in the past, but it seems to be working its way out nicely right now. So. And I can totally understand staff not, needing to organize another committee. But I'm still sitting on the fence as to whether we're better to have a separate entity versus one of the two committees that organizations that we've got, just picking one versus the other.
I need a point of information about staff organizing committees. That's not any of my reports, and I don't even believe that was a big part of your structure either. There were many different things in play other than polling for dates, just to be clear.
That was the one I'm most sympathetic to.
But I do believe there's other staff other than council.
For my seat, it's not an issue. I support the current recommendation with some amendments, particularly around the funding piece. But it's never been an issue around saving staff time or resources. To me, it's a clear governance issue. It's also not an issue of does Bowen Island support heritage? I think Bowen Island supports heritage deeply in the community. The challenge I have, coming back to the governance piece, is that enacting by bylaw an external organization, which becomes a statutory thing to serve as a community heritage commission, is a statutory term. And there's three pieces in that term. The commission's job is to operate services. It's to undertake operation and enforcement with respect to council direction, or is to manage property and licenses held by the municipality. And our existing commission doesn't do that. And I think one of the reasons why we don't see councils across the province appointing external organizations to serve as heritage commissions that do those things is that it's a delegation of statutory authority to an external organization. And, I'm sympathetic to the notion of keeping a heritage commission, but if that's the will of council, my recommendation would be that we just keep it as is within the municipality. I'm not sure why we would delegate statutory authority to an external party. It's not done, which is why you don't see it in other areas of the province. With respect to the mandate of the commission, and this is reflected in the mandate of how the commission was originally structured. So when you read the bylaw for the duties of the Heritage Commission, it does a few things, most of which are to advise council and to deal with referrals. And that doesn't actually meet the statutory definition of what a commission is supposed to do. And so, again, I'm sympathetic to the notion that we're somehow, by a change of governance, we're going to lose passion in the community. And I don't necessarily agree with the public commenters' point around a services agreement, sets you up to bite the hand that feeds it. The challenge with appointing an external organization is that that organization becomes the hand. They are then responsible for holding open meetings. They are then responsible for all of the governance overhead of becoming a municipal entity. They're become responsible for freedom of information requests and all of those pieces and discussions. And that adds, to do that externally, it adds actually another layer of governance between the external organization and council. So there's nothing in the legislation that suggests or at all that would suggest that not having a heritage commission or a named heritage commission somehow does not allow a municipality or a council to exercise any of their authority under heritage legislation. Council can still do that. My recommendation would be continue with a collaborative services agreement like we do. We have memorandum of understanding with the Conservancy. We've got agreements with Birch. The Hearth is another example that's been worked with for years. So these are successful entities that have worked with the municipality, and I would move in that direction. I'd move in one of two directions: either continue with what we're doing with an amendment, given what we heard from the Museum and Archives last week, that I think there's broader funding pieces to take care of. So I would move an amendment to let staff work with BEMA to figure out where all of that funding should land instead of giving a specific dollar figure. Or if council has opted, or after deliberations has decided that it wants to keep a heritage commission, then we just keep it internal to the municipality and draw on the resources in the community that we have already through the existing bylaw to maintain that function. I am not sure why we would create an extra layer of governance and an extra layer of headache for an external organization that's not going to have any statutory authority delegated to them. To hold meetings and advise council in a way that they're technically, acting as part of the municipality anyway. So it doesn't seem from a governance standpoint that it makes sense. And I'm interested in effective governance in a way that leverages community passions and expertise that makes sense. So I would move in one of those two directions. I think, we do it as is with some flexibility for staff to work with BEMA to figure out the overall funding envelope for these next few years, or we just keep the Heritage Commission internal to the organization. Looking at second round speakers, over to you, Councillor Jorgensen.
Thank you. I think Councillor Getty said it well before, like, we need to keep part of that bylaw in my view as well. The important parts, not just throw the whole, I think, to use her term, throwing the baby out with bathwater. And also build in some protections there to ensure that they're procedurally councils are referring to that to BMA. And if the referrals to BMA can be enshrined by law, then I'm not suggesting that we need to move the direction of 597, section 597. I'm suggesting specifically that we build in some additional protections into the existing bylaw and repurpose it for that use, or pass a new bylaw, but not tear down the existing work that had been done until that work is completed, because I think there's a risk there of losing a lot of the work that's been put in for and losing momentum on that. As Mayor Leonard has suggested, the other path is to keep the Heritage Commission as is. And I think we can gain more from working with BEMA. I think we just need to reshape this bylaw to serve a new purpose.
Councillor Getty. Probably Councillor Ross.
What you're saying about governance makes a whole lot of sense in terms of all of the different ramifications and how there's so many loose ends in legislation with respect to this kind of a situation. It's going to be really hard to pull things together. So is it possible at this point to table this repeal bylaw and direct staff to work on the terms of reference, so that if we use the mandate and objectives of the existing bylaw and came up with a list of something that's similar to our strategic plan. I disagree. It's probably with Councillor Fast that, we're over the hump and there's not going to be any more. I think that the challenges that are going to face heritage sites both is only going to increase as the sites get older, and some are being neglected, and whether or not we've got the courage to use a lot of the really strong options that are available in the legislation. But if we want to work with the Museum of Art, because that's they've pulled some things together, and that's the group that seems to have the expertise that we need, that we can rely on, that they're good, solid resource in the community, then can we set it up so that we figure out what those terms of reference might look like and incorporate all of the good that goes in the strategic plan and the bylaw and some other of these documents, and then revisit the repeal.
Is that possible? Yeah, it's certainly possible.
And that would be tabling this motion and
It would
directing
be,
staff.
so a couple of pieces of process. So where we are now, even for people that are following along, where I would remind council where we came from. You can see this earlier in the consent agenda, is that staff is following the directions of council. So council put forward a resolution and passed a resolution to move forward with the course of action, the recommendation that was on the table today. And that was done on December 4th, 2024. We came back at a previous meeting had some discussion on it. It seemed like there was differing opinions, so we postponed until today. At this point, council can make any resolution and so chooses. It can move the recommendation, it can move a separate course of action, it can move to postpone, but it has to be done by resolution. So we're at a regular meeting of council, we're at a business meeting, we need a resolution on what we're going to do here. And it can be to postpone, it can be to create another terms of reference, it can be to look at the bylaw, it can be to move the recommendation, it can be to move an amended recommendation. But there's going to be a decision on this today. We'll give opportunity to prepare for that. If there is a motion to put on the floor, I'll look for it. You still have the floor, Councillor Getty, otherwise we'll go to Councillor Fast or Councillor Morse. But it's ultimately the decision of council.
So I've just done what my training has told me to do for many years.
Sorry, I thought it was
Actually,
on the list.
looking at the
So
legislation.
Councillor Morse did have a hand up. Oh, first, yeah.
And under section 143 of the community charter, council may appoint a commission to do one of the following: operate services, undertake operation and enforcement, and manage property. And that's not what we're wanting. But I'm looking at section 142. And in thinking about it, I don't really like 597 of the Local Government Act, because it's a lot of people, everybody said. Council may establish and appoint a select committee to consider or inquire into any matter and report on its findings and opinion to council. And then it talks about one member must be a council member. So that's the section I'm thinking maybe we could structure Community Heritage Advisory Commission. Community Heritage and Action Committee or something, so that they would have the duties. And they would still be a municipal entity and have to have. And I also would like them, when you're talking about heritage, I think it would be nice to have open public meetings that the public can watch and see the discussion and deliberate, which you wouldn't get if it was the service agreement with the Museum of Archives. Unless we made that requirement to service agreement. But so I would like us to maybe explore section 142 select committee, which would have all the duties that we want covered off in Heritage Commission. Yeah, those set out by bylaws.
Councillor Fast?
Thank you, and thanks for all the great discussion. I have been persuaded to think that maybe what we should do is do the first recommendation to receive the report. Read the second one, and then the third one could be something like, the council directs staff to draft the terms of reference for a collaborative agreement or alternative, some kind of MOU with the Museum and Archives, including the provision allocating annual funding to support heritage-related activities, specifically the implementation of the BIM strategic plan to be carried out by FEMA, period. Anyway, that's might be an alternative. I don't know if we can direct staff to negotiate or to work with them. Or should we leave it up to them? Or should we just receive the report and see whether FEMA approaches staff? Over.
I think our CAO has been itching to get in here, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't want to, but I feel like I have to say something on this. And I think there's been a few key milestones along this road to get to here. I appreciate the mayor framing all the work that was done on committee reductions that was done with council. So I want to make it very clear that staff are not acting on staff's own mission here. We had clear direction by council. We deliberated over this process, and the end goal was to make our governance and how we use our staff more efficient. And so I just wanted to put that piece out there. We also just finished our strategic plan. We did that work in October. You're going to be seeing the plan today, the update, the strategic planning update. All through those discussions on strategic planning, heritage was not a primary focus. Actually, a big part of it was reconciliation, which kind of ties into one of the points made earlier. So I think if we are to send staff off to do additional work on different permutations and different variations of how we manage heritage on the island, that's one more piece to the strategic puzzle that we have to add. And I think in light of what we're going to be bringing forward later on today, it's pretty lengthy. It's a plan with 47 actions essentially that we need to get done before the end of this council term. I really wonder if now is the best time for staff to be focusing on this, and whether there's always an opportunity to bring committees back if they're needed again. I think we have had good relationships with service agreements, whether it's on the arts or various other things. So I just want to, ultimately it's council's direction. They get to choose where they want to go with this, but I just want to say from the staff perspective, we have put in a lot of time and effort into this, having it, go out and come back again and potentially being deferred again. And we're not done this process of committee reduction. I think there's more that comes ahead of us. So I just wanted to put that out there for council's consideration.
Okay, so let's move through the recommendations then. We've had 2 rounds of speakers. So the first recommendation is that council receive this report on local governments in British Columbia that have used the powers provided by Section 597 of the Local Government Act to designate external organizations as community heritage commissions for information. That's the receipt for information, moved by Councillor Fast, seconded by Councillor Morris. Any further discussion on receiving for information? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that carries unanimously. Next recommendation is that Bowen Island Municipality Bylaw number 702/2025, cited as Bowen Island Municipality Heritage Commission Establishment Bylaw number 392/2015, repeal bylaw number 702/2025, be read a first, second, and third time. It's not on the floor yet. I'll look for a mover. Moved by Councillor Fast, seconded by Councillor Wake. Discussion on this motion, Councillor Getty.
Can I make a motion to table?
A motion to postpone, yeah, so you can either move to postpone indefinitely or move to postpone to set.
Move to postpone indefinitely and allow staff to, allow time to come up with the service meeting.
So a motion to postpone by Councillor Getty. That is not seconded, so that is seconded by Councillor Jurgensen. Discussion on motion to postpone. Not seeing any discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor of postponing indefinitely, raise your hand and say aye. Opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Nay, and that motion does not carry with Councillor Morris, Jurgensen, and Getty in favor. Back to the main motion, discussion on this motion. Not seeing any, I'll call a question. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay.
Nay.
And that carries with Councillor Morris, Jurgensen, and Getty in opposition. Final recommendation before us is that council directs staff to prepare a community organization multi-year core funding agreement with the Bowen Island Museum and Archives, BIMA, including a provision allocating $2,000 annually to support heritage-related activities, specifically the implementation of the BIM Heritage Strategic Plan to be carried out by the BIMA Heritage Committee. Mover for this motion. Moved by Councillor Wake, seconded by Councillor Fast. Discussion on this motion. Councillor Wake, followed by Councillor Fast and Councillor Morris.
I think we should consider an amendment to the, if I understand it right, we've been talking about 2,000 and 5,000. It says 2,000 here, so. And there was a general feeling that that's not gonna go very far. But I think this still allows us to move forward. And that's and we can let staff develop the service agreement and build all the stuff into it that we need to, and then we're moving forward.
Thank you. Councilor Fest.
Thank you. I move an amendment to change the word 2,000 to 5,000.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion on the amendment. My only discussion on the amendment is not sure how council feels about this, would be to strip the amount out entirely, because I'm not sure how much it's going to cost. And we did just receive a substantial package from BMA last meeting regarding an overall core funding request. So I do have some wording that would remove that, but then also give staff the ability to look at that ask within the context of the overall core funding request.
Good.
There's a desire to take a look at that.
Let's
Yes,
vote
Councilor
down
Ferguson.
this amendment.
So any objection to withdrawing the amendment that's on the floor? Not seeing any, so we'll do that by unanimous consent. The amendment that I have worded is that council directs staff to prepare a community organization multi-year core funding agreement with the Bowen Island Museum and Archives, including consideration of funding to support heritage-related activities. Or just be different, specifically the implementation of the BIM Heritage Strategic Plan, with staff to assess and propose an appropriate funding level in the context of BIMA's overall core funding request.
Opening up a Word document.
Okay, we have it up on the screen now, and it says that council directs staff to prepare a community organization multi-year core funding agreement at the Bowen Island Museum and Archives, BIMA, including consideration of funding to support heritage-related activities, specifically the implementation of the BIM Heritage Strategic Plan. Staff to assess and propose an appropriate funding level within the context of BIMA's overall core funding request.
Add one more phrase to this. The and comma that the community organization multi-year core funding agreement with the Bowen Island Museum and Archives substantially contain in terms of mandate mandate, second for the wording. That previously existed in the bylaw number 392, establishing the Bowen Island Heritage Commission. So just for context for how this is worded, it still contains the spirit of the original motion with a couple of clarifying clauses. The first is that I believe we need to assess the overall cost and scope of this within this overall core funding request. My feeling is that if it was only $2,000 and we're asking to for the organization to do things like referrals or to doing strategic work on the Heritage Strategic Plan or the Heritage Register or advancing heritage conservation bylaws, that's going to be some substantial work, which may be significantly more than $2,000. And then based on this conversation that we are transferring the mandate that currently exists or that currently existed within the establishment of the Heritage Commission into this new core funding agreement. That is signed and will be that will be enforced between VEMA and the Heritage and the municipality. Let's move. Is there a seconder for that as it's written? Seconded by Councillor Morse. Any further discussion on this motion? Councillor Gedney?
Well, I think that we're trying to scrunch them together, and what we've done is basically grafted this new committee that's on to the Museum and Archives that has or potentially has a lot of responsibilities with respect to the mandate of the Heritage Commission, which is in some ways totally separate. They have one or two members from the organization on the Heritage Commission. And now potentially in terms of having substantially obtain or for us to define what the priorities should be for an organization and mix them all there. I mean, the delegation that we heard at the last meeting was that we haven't properly funded the museum we haven't adequately funded the Museum and Archives for some years. And they've got a whole lot of if possible, some catch up to do, which is totally separate from, and all of the work that they've been doing is totally separate from this new committee that they've accepted as an extra responsibility. But it's like, you know, they've grafted something onto an existing organization and this pushes it all together. And I'm not sure that a core funding agreement one overall is I don't want to lose I don't want it to degrade the opportunity for properly funding the organization and properly funding this what we've been talking about today in terms of the Heritage Commission. We've been working on keeping them separate and having them, you know, talked about in different ways for a reason. They are different, and you know, that may change in terms of everything we're smoothly and incorporating, but this is a big new responsibility. And I think we've got two things to look at in terms of core funding for the organization and funding for this subcommittee.
Would it help if we change the word prepare to negotiate?
Absolutely. That's really what the process is.
Yeah. Then they're going to be asking for extend multi-year core funding. Say a new one or? I think their existing one is expired. It's expired? Yeah, okay.
Okay, so it seems like a change from prepare to negotiate by unanimous consent. Unless there's any objections. Not seeing any further discussion. I will call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand, say nay.
Nay.
And that carries with Councillor Getty in opposition. Thank you to everyone who participated in it. Thank you to our deputy public officers for all the work that you've done, and we appreciate it. Moving on to bylaw 7.1, Seymour Bay Land Use Bylaw Amendment Application. We have Danny. Development in the Seymour Bay.
Thank you, Mayor Council. Here today with an application to amend the land use bylaw and the efficient community plan for land around Seymour Bay Landing from an application from Bowen Island Property. So you've seen some of the details of this application before, but I'll just go over them here. So this is an application for two specific areas around Seymour Bay Drive as part of that larger county development. And the proposal is to amend the UCP and the zoning to permit additional housing units centered around Seymour Bay Drive. And my report and the application goes into some more details in terms of these 5 different areas, which have sort of slightly different uses proposed and forms of housing. But the big picture would be the application seeks up to 312 units in the overall zone, increase from the current 160 currently permitted, and see some increase to commercial uses as well to support that housing. And so the application seeks density more clustered housing in various forms and additional commercial floor area to create a viable commercial area. And then outlining for council just our rezoning the OCP amendment process. So outlining here the steps that an application would take. And what I've done here is just highlight the council check-ins as well. So by my count, 7 different times where we would be presenting to council with the application. We're at that first step where we're seeking referrals to committees. Going over some of the OCP policies associated with the area. So if you see on the map, they're within the lands are within a comprehensive development area in Bowen's OCP. So our CDA 1, which is the Cowan Point Comprehensive Development Area. So there are objectives and policies specific to this area. So objective 65 is to comprehensively plan and implement the Cowan Point-based development in a manner that fosters a sense of community through clustered settlement patterns with diverse housing types that are located on lots of assorted sizes. And then going through, we also see this area mentioned in terms of multi-unit housing policies in our RCP. So it identifies it as an area where consideration may be given to townhouse multi-unit housing, including affordable housing, which meets the needs of island residents. And then I know we've had a couple meetings looking specifically at the policies in the CDA 1 zone. So policy 146 is setting that maximum number of residential dwelling units, the maximum 176. Policy 147 then is the one that talks about innovative development proposals may exceed the maximum number of dwelling units in the zoning bylaw. And then policy 148 is the one that outlines sort of development patterns within the CDA zone. So showing block 1 being at the northern area and block 2 being the southern area around Seymour Bay Drive, different uses and unit counts for those 2 areas. So the application that's before you seeks to amend the land use area 9 of this area 9 of their comprehensive development zone in the land use bylaw. So permits additional commercial recreation uses. So for example, seeking permission for daycare for a full retail use. So the current zone has some restrictions on the types of retail that are permitted and to permit recreation facilities. It seeks to increase the commercial floor area that's permitted in the zone. So for example, increasing the amount of retail space that would be available from 250 to 500 square meters. Increase the number of guest house bedrooms that are in the zone. So the zone permits for a guest house or inn type use. And currently that the number of bedrooms is capped at 20 and they seek an increase to 30. And then the big number, increasing the number of primary dwelling units in area 9 of the zone. And the 200. The report goes into some staff discussion. I know water has been a hot topic when we've come before council before from residents concerned about this application not negatively impacting their water supply. So there's an updated technical study that is submitted as part of the application. It's in the package showing an analysis of the capacity of Josephine Lake and water rights remaining to Cowan Point Utility. I'll say that the applicants have provided that 2010 study that community members have discussed. It's by Coburg Blindwall. sort of forms the basis of these series of applications, and we can make that available from the on our website. The study submitted by Water Street Engineering is the same engineer who submitted the work for Woodline Outlet. They've just changed firms over the years. And the report talks about staff commissioning a third-party review of the analysis. So seeking to employ a separate engineering firm to confirm or to review the conclusions, the assumptions, the recommendations in that report. And as well, we're reaching out to the comptroller of water rights to determine their ability to review a rezoning application at this stage. So the report talks about it a little bit, but essentially this is a private utility on the south side of Welland, a Cowan Point water utility. They are overseen by the comptroller of water rights in BC. And so, for example, any subdivision application that they submit for additional lots, even within their existing zoning, they are not able to proceed until they've received approval from the comptroller of water rights, who reviews their water studies and their sort of the overall operations of the utility before they confirm each additional unit or each additional lot. And that would continue to be the case if this rezoning goes through. The comptroller of water rights would have to approve each individual subdivision as well for the increase, and they'd have to demonstrate that they have water available to service it. So we're reaching out to them to essentially ask them to be able to provide some feedback on the application at this stage, rather than when you would have to provide it at subdivision stage. Because I think us and the developer both agree there's no sense going through with an application and a rezoning if the comptroller of water rights is not satisfied that they would permit subdivision. The report talks about some of our municipal policies that apply, so the affordable housing policy. The applicant is open and look forward to discussion with BIM about provision of affordable and diverse housing in this proposal. And so staff recommend referral to Birch as sort of an initial kicking off point of that discussion as part of review of this application. We're going to talk about the conservation development policy. Staff recommend referral to APC and PCAC for initial discussion on that policy. I'll note for that policy, it does make it challenging sort of to implement on this site, given that the stage that it is in the overall master plan development of the Cowan Point development, much of the land for trails and parks and green space has already been provided. Essentially, the focus of this application is in some of those development sites that are remaining. And so that's a discussion we'll have with those committees, and I'm sure the council to move forward. All right, so when I talk about referrals, to referral to the APC, to the Parks, Environment, Climate Action, Birch, and to the OCP steering committee for information, as we've done with other applications. Noting application or noting alternative here. So council or staff right now are seeking referrals and report back to council. One alternative for council is always to direct staff to prepare bylaws, so to come back with bylaws for first reading when we come back with results and referrals. So we have a motion there, council wants to move that alternative. Otherwise, the application is to refer this application to those committees that I've named first, and to report back with results of the referral. And I'm open for any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Jurgensen, followed by Councillor Morrison.
I would like to move the recommendation, but not as written. I would like to add the Accessibility Advisory Committee to that list as well. As this is a fairly substantial development change on the south side of Welland, that I think could benefit positively from that committee's input as well.
Okay, so for the AAC, for recommendation or for information?
For referral.
Okay, so you move the recommendation.
Change my question first.
I'm happy to hold off and move it.
Okay, then we'll come back after Councillor Morrison.
So it's a couple of process. So the 2010 Sherwood Lidle study, water study, will be posted on the website. And can it be emailed to members of council?
Sure.
And the other is looking at the water study. It only talks about water use by the Cowan Point utility. It makes no reference to water use by and other licenses that are on the lake. And so I don't quite know how it could address the capacity of the lake the way it's written. And the The third question is, all the submissions that were made back last September, are they all going to be considered? They don't have to be resubmitted to be considered, or do they have to be resubmitted?
Through the chair, if I can remember all those, I would say, no, they don't have to be resubmitted. And I think if we came probably at stage of first reading is when we would bring a collection of like public comments received on this application. Council obviously is aware of them and have, saw them there in those meetings when they were made and have them in their mind, but in terms of when we collect and bring, stuff to council, that would be an appropriate stage, I think. The water studies, I believe both water studies refer to the license that they have, and that's the amount of water that is discussed.
I mean, I will begin.
But that is the intent of both studies, is they don't examine the whole, they examine the license available for the utility, and that's the amount that's discussed.
Report, it starts off to say we're assessing the capacity of the lake. Part of the reason for the question. Right, I think that was one of the questions I have.
Councilor Fest.
I just have a really little question. Page 10 of 13. It refers to athletic park. Is that the same as the Veterans Park?
The chair, yes, I believe so. I'm referring to Athletic Park Drive.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that it wasn't mixed up. Thank you.
Back to you for the motion, Councilor Ferguson.
I will move motion as written with the addition of the Accessibility Advisory Committee to the list of committees to be referred to. For recommendation.
So we have it's been moved. Is there a seconder for the motion? Second by Councilor Wake. Any further discussion on it going to committee? Not seeing any. I will call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries unanimously. And moving on to 8.1, Mr. Marty is back for 1033 Miller Road Septic Covenant. The staff report is there. I will look to council for any questions that you may have of the plan. Councilor Getty.
The name Hemlock Hill is the name that's been attached to the building that's going in behind the health center and the fire hall. That
Through the chair, that is correct. Yes.
I've heard the name.
Yes, I still refer to it as the Birch Building, and it was 3 names ago. So it's Hemlock.
Not seeing any further questions. May I have the recommendation, please? Councilor Fast.
Thank you. I'll move that council direct staff to enter into a restrictive covenant at 1029 Miller Road to permit the Hemlock Hill Affordable Housing Development to use a portion of the lot as a septic field.
Moved by Councilor Fast, seconded by Councilor Jurgensen. Any further questions? Not seeing any. I will call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Moving on to 8.2. 1710 White South Drive, introduction to an application for a temporary use permit. We've seen this one before. The report is contained in the agenda. I will count for any questions you might have of the planners. Councilor Getty, followed by Councilor Fast.
So there was a letter that we received a neighbor basically commenting that the construction started some years before the first temporary use permit, and then there's been this 3-year temporary use permit, and they're asking for a further. And that the suggestion was that if there was anything that council could do to try to, I guess, improve upon the performance to get this thing finished, that we try and do that. Are there any mechanisms that we can use or suggest to reduce this timeline? So in terms of all of the traffic that she's complaining about, this does not seem to be helping to reduce. But how much longer do we go through this process?
I think the chair, One, I would say is part of the goal of TUP is to reduce traffic and to accelerate construction time. It's to sort of help support the development without, without causing further delays. In terms of sort of incentives to complete, I mean, that was part of the rationale when we brought the building bylaw changes last year, was to actually increase the costs as the building permit continues. So it goes now, you pay 20% of the fee for the first renewal and the second renewal, and then you pay 50% of the fee for further renewals. So it does ramp up quite a bit. Yeah, given the size of this construction, their original building permit fee was several $100,000. A fairly large percentage of our building permit revenue for the year. So there is sort of, those are the tools that we have in place. We have like building permit expiry and then increase as you go forward. That's the main tool that we use to encourage people.
So if this is because they ran out of time before they could renew, and this is a new application, does this flip back to the 20%?
So sure, this is for the temporary use permit, so this is sort of a separate side than the.
Council Pest.
Thank you. I'll be prepared to move the motion to give notice, provided that it's to all properties within 500 meters, which catches more of the houses on White Sales, which would be referring to the letter from Lisa Paley. They still have these concerns with traffic. And from my notes, that's what council passed last time, which I think was one of our first council meetings. We bumped it up from 200 meters or 100 meters to 500 to give notice to more of the folks who might be affected. I also don't know if I'm going to vote in favor of it, even though I'm proposed to move it, because it's sort of a precedent for worker housing, isn't it? They've been out there for most of our term in the trailer park in the trailers, 4 trailers. And it doesn't sound like it has been effective at reducing traffic on White Sales, but mind you, we've only got one letter and I don't know how to measure that. And I just, I think there's a social equity kind of issue too, when somebody who's maybe building a smaller, more modest, building on a smaller, more modest lot, they have 1 year in a travel trailer to construct the work without going to the expense and the time and council time of a temporary use permit. All of the traffic that entails. Anyways, it seems to me a funny precedent for worker housing that we might be encouraging, but I have to acknowledge that the work is underway. I'm not sure, but anyway, if the motion is moved, well, I'll move it with the 500 meters if you would allow that. That notice be given, that council will be considering the issuance of temporary use permit TUP 2006-004 for temporary worker accommodation use for 1710 White Sales Drive, legally described as in the motion at the February 23rd, 2026 meeting of council, and that council authorized staff for the consideration of issuance of TUP temporary use permit 2006-0004 in accordance with section 494 of the Local Government Act to all properties within 500 meters of the legal boundary of 1710 White Sales Drive.
Moved by Councilor Fest, seconded by Councilor Peterson.
No, it's a question.
I'm going to look for a seconder first, seconded by Councilor Saunders, and then over to you for a question.
It was just regarding the text of that motion. In both the instances, Councillor Fast referred to TUP 2006 004. Is that supposed to be 2026 004?
You got it.
Okay, just wanted to confirm.
What a memory. Very good. Thank you.
Not seeing any further hand raised or discussion, I will call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. 8.3 2026 strategic plan update. We have it here in the agenda. If there's any brief comments you would like to make, I will look for a motion to publish the 2026 update. Councilor Jurgensen.
I move as written.
Okay. Well, after the motion, moved in second. I'll second that, and then I'll turn it over to our CAO for comments on the strategic plan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So keep it brief. We have I made all the changes previously identified by council, consolidate this plan into 45 specific action. Some key highlights this year, as opposed to previous years, is a heavy focus on improving transportation and ferry services to Bowen Island and how the municipality can contribute to that goal. There's content in here on addressing affordable housing, community diversity, and a renewed focus on reconciliation and inclusion. And the accessibility action plan is one key portion of that we'll be advancing. And then finally, continued focus on natural ecosystems and addressing climate change. So those are all in here. And I would just, as a snapshot, I think engineering public works is passed with about a quarter of this list. So that's probably where most of the work lies, but it's pretty equally distributed. There's a lot of contribution from staff this year. So it's a little bit more spread out than previous years. So yeah, we present this to council and are ready to action these things.
Right on. And certainly thank you to council and staff for all the work that we've done over the years on strategic planning. This is an evolution of our fourth iteration of this plan. I remember when we first came together as a council back in 2022 for strategic planning, there was a lot of themes and everything seemed very high in the air and blue sky. And it's been a real pleasure working with this council and with our staff to bring our aspirations to ground. Got a realistic plan with some great initiatives that if we are able to deliver on them, will certainly benefit the community. With that, not seeing any further commenters, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that carries unanimously. 8.4 quarterly municipal update. I'll turn it over again to our CAO.
Mr. Mayor, so this is the winter quarterly report. We'll go through it in our usual way, scroll through the report and invite our various department heads and content creators to come up and field any questions that council might have specifically related to their activities at order. So start off. Administration.
Thank you. So just as detailed here in the last quarter of 2025, administration, also known as corporate services, a portion of corporate services is busy supporting council with the strategic planning workshop, preparing the operating and capital budgets, hosting and planning for the House Sound Community Forum and the Economic Development Committee Business Summit. So undertook the administration of the contract to sell the old fire hall to BC Hydro. Some items regarding a security audit, IT cybersecurity, booked hotels for UBCM 2026. That's kind of a big deal. And participated in the jury panel for the community grants, and two of us, myself and the deputy corporate officer, advanced our professional development by going to the corporate officer forum, the provincial forum. That's all.
Wonderful, thank you. Any questions from corporate services?
Okay, next up is finance.
Thank you. We just keep rolling along in the finance department. We're coming to the end of our fiscal reporting period. So in the last quarter, we started gathering information. We had meetings with the auditors. Council had meetings with the auditors to set audit priorities for 2025. We will now begin the extensive process of creating year-end reconciliations and producing the financial statements for audit, resulting in preparation of the annual audited financial statements in the spring. And the other significant thing that we looked after this quarter was a second round of community grant applications. They're smaller applications. We tend to call them grants in aid in respect of the smaller amount. And it's if there are any funds left over from the grants budget during the final quarter, we like to make sure we've given another opportunity to community grants to seek to apply for those funds. So as you can see, there were several grants that were considered and awarded, and we will do the same next year should there be a surplus in the community grants budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is our first quarterly report update from our Director of Engineering. Public Works, Sarah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Through the chair. So this quarterly report, we wanted to emphasize on the fact that Engineering and Public Works Department is one of the biggest departments in the municipality, and we consume the biggest budget operating and capital. So we think that we owe this to the community to give more detailed information about the projects operating and capital. So what we did, if you look at the report, you can see a summary of what we have done, and there is a link to detailed information. If you click on that, you can go to the detailed information of all the activities, capital and operation. So we think that community needs to know about all these, or there are members of communities that are interested in more information, and we should provide this information with our quarterly reports to them. So if you click on that link, we have the executive summary. I just read through the executive summary, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. So during Q4 2025, Engineering and Public Works delivered a high volume of capital projects, operational services, emergency response activities, and long-range planning initiatives across water, sewer, road, drainage, facility, and asset management. The quarter was characterized by the completion of major West Side water system and advancement of sewer inflow and infiltration investigation, proactive storm responses and winter readiness, emergency water main repairs, and significant improvement to BIM's asset data and maintenance system. So if you would like to have specific questions about these projects, please let me know.
That's good.
I would suggest that you add at the top of page 5 that you responded both to a Valhalla Road water main break and a Lenore Road water main break.
Through the chair, very
Yes, Councillor Fest.
I'm just wondering, can you tell us a little bit about the outcome of the I&I info? The infiltration and whatever the other word is, or is that coming in a future report?
Through the chair, a very good question. So we completed the investigation during the days that it was pouring rain, thank goodness. So it was very good that we completed the the investigation before the break. The full report will be presented to council in a couple of weeks. We have not received a stamped report from the engineers yet. But the good news is that we don't, based on my conversation with the field team, we don't have huge infiltration into our manholes. This is a good news. So it means that we don't need to invest a lot of money in our manholes. The repairs that we have done previously worked. This is a very good news. And that resulted in reducing the inflow into the wastewater treatment plant as well. During that investigation, we figured out the numbers that we have and we are receiving from wastewater treatment plant influent flow meter is not the right number. So, and the numbers need to be calibrated. So we changed the flow meter, we calibrated the number, and we will bring the numbers to the council shortly. All those investigations are happening between Caribou Lytle and Urban System, who were involved in calculation and flow metering and everything that we have done for inflow and infiltration.
Councilor Goodson.
The chair, you mentioned the numbers were incorrect at the flow meter. Were they incorrect in a good way or a bad way?
Through the chair, thankfully, it's going to be in a good way. However, the numbers are going to be lower than it was reported previously, but it's not going to be as much as lower as we can permit more connections. However, again, what we are looking into by this investigation is that maybe we need to improve the process in the wastewater treatment plant. By the process, I mean the process of treating wastewater treatment plant and looking after the biological treatment and increasing the capacity that way. We are looking into that right after investigation when we receive the report for inflow and infiltration report.
Thank you.
Councilor Morrison.
Just following up on that. So is there a meter that actually measures what goes into the plant?
Through the chair, yes, there is a meter.
I didn't think there was one initially, so.
Oh, there is a meter there, and it was put in place many, many years ago, and nobody looked into the calibration. When we were doing this investigation, we figured out that we installed another 3 flow meters in different locations, and in the location very close to the wastewater treatment plant, we read the numbers, flow rates, and we figured out these numbers are very different from what we are reading at the wastewater treatment plant. And we had to, I went through all the reports that Urban System put together, and I report back to Caribou Lytle, and they were like, oh, these numbers are not matching. Let's look into it. And then by looking more, we figured out the flow meter at the wastewater treatment plant is not calibrated and reading the numbers incorrectly.
And since we're into this topic, I'm curious, did the smoke testing lead to any interesting findings, or do we have those back yet?
The smoke testing showed that, again, everything is not final. I'll bring more detailed information back to the council, but we don't have major issues. That was there were a couple of clogs in the system that through the cleaning, it was identified and it was resolved. One good thing during this investigation and during this cleanup was that the cleanup of the system helps out with other issues that sometimes we experience is in Snug Cove. So flushing all those sewer mains is helping out, and I haven't received any complaints from the residents.
That's helpful. Thank you. Not seeing any further questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up would be our fire chief, but he is not here today. So I know he would say things are going wonderfully at the fire hall and they're doing all his training, so and the emergency program is so doing quite well. We had EOC essentials training for a lot of the staff last quarter, which culminated in an exercise that we did, and the exercise was, I believe, an earthquake, if memory serves correctly, and our staff, based on the auditors that were there, staff performed wonderfully, and we got a whole bunch of recommendations out of that exercise that we're enacting and putting into place to improve what we did. So kudos to all staff who were involved in that EOC exercise, because we did really well. And we also had observers from other places who came in and looked at what we were doing. And I believe there were people from, say, Lions Bay and a few others that were there to observe what we did, and that were quite impressed with the maturity of our emergency program. So with that, I could note down some questions that maybe our fire chief could answer later, or I can try and answer them myself if you have any. Thank you.
Good pictures.
Next, it's always fun as a CEO to be able to invite staff who don't normally present. So today we have Sienna Valley who's going to fill in for our manager, Jillian, who normally this book. So
Thanks for having me. This is my first time speaking at council, so very exciting. I'm here representing Recreation, otherwise known as the Fun Department. Rec had a huge quarter to round out a massive year of firsts for our department. For kids programming, we introduced several new successful programs and brought some of our favorite annual events to the community center for the first time ever, such as our iconic grade 5 to 7 dance in the theater and the ever popular Haunted House Pro D-Day camp. Holiday Makers and Bakers moved to the community center and was the first program to ever use the brand new community kitchen that we've just got all up and running. Our youth crafters were at the Bix Craft Fair, had the highest number of participants in our youth crafters history, which was great. And on top of that, we saw many of our after-school regular programs full this season, and we saw pretty high numbers of engagement with all of our kids' programs. For teens, we ran some fitness center orientations so that they could be approved to use our gym space, as well as hosted a community center all access night, where about 40 youth came together for a shared meal, games, and a movie. Adult programming also was super fun and super busy. The Rocky Horror Picture Show at the Bowen Theatre was a huge hit and a sold-out audience with incredible energy. And we immediately had people asking when the event is going to be back and when they can get tickets for it. We ran nearly 40 weekly adult fitness classes and sports programs that were consistently busy, with pickleball still holding the crown for being Rec's most popular sport, with 5 time slots that were all fully booked. For Q4, Rec had over 3,700 unique visits for recreation programs and classes based on weekly registrations and drop-ins. And community events were a big highlight for us in Q4 as well. We had an all-wheels skate day hosted here at the community center, which brought out over 150 people of all ages for skateboarding, scootering, live music, and a barbecue. One especially meaningful and heartwarming initiative that we had this quarter was our Downtown East Side Shoebox Donation Drive. It started with 5 organizers and it grew into around 25 volunteers who packed over 400 different items into winter care boxes for individuals living on the Downtown East Side. And then for the first time ever, the Rec Department and the Community Center were open during the municipal holiday break, which is typically closed. We welcomed around 55 visitors a day in only 4 hours each day for fitness classes, the fitness center, movies, the living room, water, showers, etc., which just showed us that there was a strong interest in having the facility open during those typical closure hours, which was great. And the facility use stayed quite strong across the board in Q4 with all of our community center spaces and rental spaces being used frequently. Rental spaces were busy with higher revenue numbers than last quarter and a wide range of events from birthday parties to plays, concerts, films, business summits, and other community events. The fitness center continues to be an increasingly busy space. We had over 1,400 reported users this quarter, which is almost 1.5 times the number that we had our previous quarter. Our community living room over here is used daily, especially during these cold and stormy months, as a place for meetings, workshops, tutoring, homework, hobbies, connections, and social initiatives. It also serves as a support space during power outages and provides warmth, washrooms, and water when homes around the island lack power or safe access. Overall, this quarter showed really strong participation across all ages in rec programs, a growing demand for programs and the space, and a lot of positive energy around the community center. And it's allowed rec programs to grow to new heights we've never seen before, and it's increasingly proving to be a great hub for Bowen Islanders.
Thanks for that and the enthusiasm with which it was delivered. I just want to say, I'm really glad you're counting things. Like, that was good to hear, because people have and continue to pay a lot of money for this place to be built and operated, and getting the sense it's being well used. I think that's really positive feedback for that one. So thanks.
Thank you.
Just curious, given the popularity of pickleball, if there's anything going on between us and the board to figure out if we can do something with the resurfacing of the tennis courts.
Yeah, that's a project that's being worked on right now with a group of pickleballers. They are working on some kind of plan to resurface that court and turn it into more of a versatile multi-sport court. Don't know all the details of it right now, but something that's being worked on.
I might have to follow up later when you've got a copy of the annual report in front of you, but there's a picture at the bottom right of page 10, and it looks like it's got a smoke machine or something up in front of the building. Is that skateboarding?
That was our grade 5, 6, 7 Halloween dance. So we had some really cool decoration and projections on the outside of the building, and then the smoke coming down the steps as all of our grade 5, 6, 7s showed up in their full costumes, and they had a big dance party in the theater.
I couldn't figure out.
Yeah.
A fire drill.
A fun fire show.
I'm interested in the being open over the break. And that what I wrote down here is strong interest use, open first time. Is that, what kind of use? Can you give me more numbers?
Yeah. So we were open from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock for 3 days over the break that we'd usually be closed. So just 4 hours on those 3 days. And like I said, we had around 55 people each day coming in. That was between a lot of people using our fitness center. We had a couple pop-up fitness classes that people were able to participate in, like jazzercise and yoga. And then we also played a movie every day that we had a few families and some kids come to it. And we also had a decent number of people who are regularly at the community center come in and use this space as a workspace in the living room. We had several people using the showers. A few people just coming and dropping in. We had a couple people ask about the municipality, but ended up just chatting with me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
It's a tough act to follow. The Parks and Environment Department was focused a lot on climate action strategy or climate action in the last quarter. We finalized the climate action strategy late in the year. And we also worked extensively with the Coastal Climate Resilience Collaborative that we're a part of, which is a regional group. They funded our attendance at the Livable Cities Forum in Halifax this year, where we learned a lot about climate action. And then we applied for a joint grant with them to advance a climate resilience hub project in collaboration with Gibson's. We also applied for an adaptation and action grant to look at design work of a Tunstall Bay shoreline restoration project. And related to that, we offered a Green Shores Level 1 course. They are, and it's through the Stewardship Center, but they're an organization that promotes nature-based solutions to climate-related shoreline erosion, sea level rise. And so the other things that we've done have been related to invasive species management. We talked to the garden club about invasive species, and we also did a pretty extensive planting out at Westside Playground, which was a follow-up to an invasive species broom pull. We planted some oak trees and pine trees out there, which should do well in the dry environment.
What kind of oak trees did you plant?
We did about half Gary oak and then another species, I can't remember. It wasn't an English oak, but it was some varietal that I hope will be a little bit more resilient. I'm just not sure the Gary will survive.
Yeah, that's what, I'm just curious, I said, well, keep an eye on them too. Thank you.
Right on. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you. So good to talk about the planning department. Some of the highlights including updates to our bylaws. So the development procedures bylaw and our building bylaw, we saw some changes happen. Your planning staff attended the Green Shores training that Carlo put on to help learn about environmentally friendly, climate resilient shoreline development. One big highlight of the quarter was the bringing to council the agreement to lease Area 1 of Lot 1 with Birch to help support their development of affordable housing on that site and do some of that work leading into it. And then finally, I know 2 public hearings that were held for 2 different applications and council site visit. And then you see there as well our building department stats. So building activity continues probably slow through the end of 2025, but picked up a little bit in December. So we saw slightly higher for building permit stats, I believe, than earlier in the year.
Any questions? Thank you so much, Mr. Brown.
Would our CFO like to say something about bylaw services?
Thanks. So one of an unusual and kind of interesting thing that took place this year was the kayak auction. So once a year, we do a beach cleanup. We put out public notice that kayaks that are unlabeled and left on the beach will be removed after a certain date and held. They're held for 90 days, at which time then we are permitted to dispose of them. So we did have several kayaks that we picked up off the various beaches around Bowen Island. We held them for 90 days. A couple of them were claimed. 2 people did contact us to say, oh, you've got my kayaks. So we managed to get those back to the rightful owners, and they've now gone through and labeled them, which is the requirement. They're going to leave them down on the racks. And then the rest of them were put up for auction. And we did manage to sell them all. And then I believe that we collected, just trying to see if it's in the report here. Going by memory, and I don't want to quote something different, but I do believe that we managed to collect approximately $1,400 from the kayak auction, which goes to offset the costs that we involve in picking them up, going out there, sending our staff to get them, going out there, making them available to be picked up by the rightful owners, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's something that we do each year. We also do that with bikes that are left at either the bike barn or public bike lockup. places during the year. So that's something that happened over the quarter. And there's some policy work going on with the sanitary sewer. So part of the bylaw responsibility is making visits to the local establishments that have grease traps to help filter some of the waste that goes into the sewer, which will reduce the amount of blockages and plug ups that we get as the grease begins to congeal in the sewer pipes. So as part of our responsibility, we do go and we carry out inspections of those grease traps in the various establishments. So that was done this quarter, and we'll continue to do that a couple times a year as well. So I think that's it. That's all that we have to report from the bylaw perspective. Any questions?
Questions for Bylaw Services, Council Getty?
I'm just reading the warrants to the staff. I think that's interesting and amazing and fun and good and all sorts of positive things.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So up is human resources and Kat's first presentation back, I believe.
Yeah, so the last quarter, we had some exciting new appointments, not the least of which was our new Director of Engineering, Sarah. And we also had Devin Anderson move to a supervisory position in the union. So he's moved up to a lead hand position. So he's learning those ropes now. We also had an interesting lateral change to cover a temporary backfill on the roads crew where Jesse Perry, who works in bylaw services, took on a part-time backfill in roads. So it's always neat to see people take on multiple roles and try out different things here. We board there. I know you can't read any of the shout outs on that board in that picture, but there were a lot of them. And so that just represents one quarter of the year where staff are being recognized by the public as well as by one another for excellent work. And I think these little quarterly report updates speak to that as well. And we, I missed an appointment. So we're also growing our facilities roster as we have our recreation and community services expanding with this new space. We want to make sure we always have enough people on deck to provide custodial and facility services. So we welcome Sam Dean to that team just to make sure that we have adequate coverage for all available shifts. And he's been doing a great job so far. And so we also had me come back. Came back on a part-time basis. And so I continued to job share with Christina until the end of March. End of April. I'll be back in full-time then. And then, of course, being the end of the year, a really important part of human resources is recognizing our amazing staff for the work that they've done throughout the year. So we had a great year-end celebration hosted by the Recreation Department. So Sienna and Sasha, I know, put a lot of work into that. And they introduced a really popular and exciting initiative this year, which was the BIMI Awards. So special recognition for staff where we actually got to vote for one another and nominate people to win awards in various areas. And it was remarkable seeing just how many people were nominated across different departments and just all the different names that came to mind when looking at these really important and valuable awards. So I think that just speaks to how well our people are performing and how highly everybody's valued here.
Thank you. Yes.
I congratulated Kirsten. I should have congratulated you on those awards. They're fun.
Oh, yeah, that was Sasha and Sienna.
Oh.
Yeah, so congratulate the recreation department on that. But yes, they are fun and I think they'll probably grow. Yeah.
All right. I believe we had a long form poem by our CAO that celebrated the success of the municipality that maybe we should get a command performance on again.
Yeah. Was anyone recording that?
Thank you.
So certainly last but not least, we have our librarian here today to talk about library activities because it can be very dry and free of
colorful graphics update from the CEO. So
Well, I don't think I'm gonna be as fun as Sienna was, but we'll do what we can. First of all, I just want to thank Councillor Fast very much for having taken on this role in previous quarterly reports, and my apologies that I was not present at previous quarterly reports that highlighted the library. So happy to be here now. A little bit of stats that I tried to include. I'm realizing there's so many other things when I listen to all the other reports that I could be including, but I also do not want to give you too long of a giant diatribe about what the library is doing. We had 663 new items that we added to our collection in Q4, 76 new patrons, more than 1,500 questions that we answer, assisted 52 people with their devices and technology questions, and held 34 programs that were attended by 440 people. So some of the highlights of some of that programming is mostly what I'm giving you. The Writers Feedback Group is a new program that we are presenting, and we have a community member who is facilitating that program. It's had lots of positive feedback from a variety of writers who are enjoying getting together to share their writing with each other and receive feedback, and we'll continue that into January and March. October, November, we had some cybersecurity. It was, I'm going to get it wrong, it's either October that was cybersecurity. There's always, every month is something month, and every week is something week. But one of them was about cybersecurity and media literacy. So we've been focusing on that a little bit, and we had a talk by Professor Dr. Ahmad Arawi from SFU, who delivered a talk to a full house in the annex about misinformation, disinformation, AI generated media, etc. So we had more than 40 people participate and ask lots of questions. He was very enlightening. That's going to be followed up. It was just followed up last week by a presentation by Jay Calvert of CyberSmart Canada. So on January 17th, we had another 38 people who came to hear about cybersecurity, your own personal cybersecurity. It was kind of geared to seniors more than anything, but everyone was welcome. And we had, as I say, about 38 people who came, and a couple of people who immediately called us up to book tech tutor appointments after that to make sure that they were doing the right thing on their own devices and in their personal life. So we know that all of these topics right now are very timely, and people are concerned about lots of things about their identity theft and keeping their information private and secure. We expect to have, I think Jay Calvert's going to come back in the spring to do a presentation on AI with a little more detail for people to recognize what they're seeing with AI and whether they should question it or be concerned, kind of critical thinking skills. October was also Canadian Library Month, so we had an opportunity for our patrons to fill in a little post-it saying, why do you like libraries? And there was a great variety of, aside from books, and lots of other things about, everyone is welcome. We love meeting with friends here and catching up and gathering study space, etc. And anti-capitalist bliss, which was one of the more notable ones that we had. So that was great. There's a few other programs. Kelly Woods, who is our Children and Youth Services Coordinator, was promoting a storytelling event with Richard Van Camp, who's an Indigenous storyteller. It was actually presented by another organization called Public Library Interlink, but it was a virtual presentation. But several classes from BIX wanted to come and attend in person and watch that live presentation and be able to ask questions. Kelly then gave them a tour of the library, showed them collections, and talked about that kind of thing. Another bunch of classes watched the same program in their classrooms. BIX won a trophy for the highest summer reading club participation in any medium-sized West Vancouver school. Bunch of criteria there about how you win the award. It was the first time they'd won it, and Kelly Woods, our youth coordinator, was invited to attend that little ceremony and take a photo because, in fact, all of the registration in Summer Reading Club through Bix goes through the Bowen Island Library. So that's where our kids are learning about Summer Reading Club and coming to register through the library. So we got to kind of share in that trophy. Our Friends of the Library held a book sale in the annex, which was great. They've been struggling with finding a venue to store their books and collect them and then actually hold a book sale, which has been their primary fundraising efforts for the library for quite a number of years. So they held a smaller book sale in the annex and amazingly raised $1,200 in that 1-day sale, which was fantastic. Previous sales that they were doing in the gym, big multi-day book sales, were probably netting about $4,000 or $5,000 in the last few years. So $1,200 for this one we all felt was quite a good success. So I'm encouraging them to do more smaller sales in the library annex. And Kelly held a Cozy Family Fort Day in December for families to come in and build forts in the annex and read by flashlight and drink hot chocolate and enjoy themselves during the winter holidays. And we have a lovely quilt display in the library annex as well at the moment. Does anyone have any questions? Chair.
Thank you so much. I mean, I love the picture of the forts.
Yes, I know. It was great. Totally fun. We all brought in sheets and clips and things. Yeah, it was lots of fun. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of the quarterly report. It's such a great opportunity to see the work the municipality is doing all the way around. Yes.
I move that we receive this report.
It's been moved to receive by Councillor Fast, seconded by Councillor Saunders. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries unanimously. Moving on to our next item, which is the 8.5, the CAO update. For a few comments, over to Mr. Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just first off, just for the quarterly report, I just want to still acknowledge the work that staff put into that and really with Sarah Baxter and those communication coordinators having all this information. It's great to see how this has transformed and evolved over the last year. In terms of my report, I have a lot of broad range of items I was involved with over the last quarter. Getting into meetings with various local interest holders, some initiatives I've been working on, and as well as just some trends out there in local government that council are probably already aware of, but there's some more information on those. So I present the meeting or the report and open it up to any questions that council might have.
Not seeing any questions or comments. Perhaps just move to receive, please. Moved by Councillor Jurgensen, seconded by Councillor Saunders. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
And that carries unanimously. Next up on correspondence, we have 9.1, Andrew Monahan, Bowen All Wheel Society request for council support and site selection. Dated January 8th with a recommendation in front of us from staff. Any questions or comments on the correspondence?
I just wanted to clarify, is there anybody here that can clarify? The report, they're asking, their letter was asking for lot B, and the recommendation says lot 2. Now, lot B, looking, I think at their the map, so is this the area by the bike park or?
Through the chair, yes, it's directly adjacent to the park.
That's what they were asking for.
Yeah, they
Said lot.
weren't sure about the terminology.
Thank you. I'd be happy to move the recommendation.
Councillor.
Oh, I was just, Councilor Morris was moving the recommendation. I was happy to say.
Okay, you want to get your hand in, so I'll look to Councillor Morris to move the recommendation.
I move that council direct staff to develop a collaborative project services agreement that enables Bowen All Wheel Society to move forward with planning and fundraising for an All Wheels Park to be located on lot 2 of the.
Okay, moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Jurgensen. Any further discussion? Councillor Fast.
Thank you. Just that I'm really happy to see this and that they looked at multiple sites and assessed them. So thanks for facilitating that. And I think it's a good location. It's near the multi-use pathway, if not exactly on it, but it's also in that kind of outdoor learning grounds around the school. And I think the idea of all the physical activity and the using other kinds of transportation and all those kinds of mingling. Anyway, I think it's great. And it's also near the ambulance. And could get there easily too, remembering back to the very first bike park and why the locations were thought about. So I'm in support.
Councillor Fast, Councillor Getty.
There's some maps on, in this, report. Can you help me find lot B?
It's lot 2.
Help me find lot 2.
Can we just let staff answer?
Thanks, through the chair. So if you were in the parking lot, the big parking lot, and you wanted to go walk down to the bike park, so you would have, they have their outdoor classroom there. So they have a little garden, the snake pit, the outdoor classroom, and then there's a forested area with a trail running beside it before you get to the bike park. So it'll be right in between the outdoor classroom and the bike park. It's actually the lot that we're on right now as well. So just a portion of it.
If I may, I know there were some outdoor learning activities that were developed years ago because I've developed them, but that was like 15 years ago. I don't know if they're still being used. Can you tell me where the spruce tree is that they mentioned?
Yes, through the chair, the spruce tree is pretty much when you're walking down the trail, it's the first tree on the left, right where the forested area starts.
I thought it might be that. Okay, thank you. Maybe if I'll contact you. Thank you.
That's any further discussion. It's been moved and seconded. I will call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 9.2, which is plan for me regarding request for letter of support. Couple of comments from the chair on this one for context that's been discussed at council already. I note that at UBCM, we met with Minister Councillor Morris led a conversation on this. This is an issue that we have heard from other sectors on Bowen Island, particularly around childcare and the inclusion of Bowen Island in Metro Vancouver statistics and not necessarily taking into account their unique demographics and workforce here is a challenge. I'm broadly supportive of sending a letter that is broadly supportive of the program across all of our industries on the island. I do have a potential motion worded to that effect, but I'm open to other questions or comments from council as well. Councillor Fast, Councillor Jurgensen, Councillor Morris.
Thank you. I just have a question. I'm wondering if when Cormier spoke about Metro Vancouver Census Region, is that the same as Metro Vancouver Regional Headquarters? Does anybody know? We might not know here. Anyway, I'm just wondering if I should put this in mind. Should we join another regional district file? Okay, I'll put it in there and thank you.
Okay. Councillor Jurgensen.
I just want to say I'm happy to second a motion. You're welcome. To put it on the table.
Councillor Morris.
Because this isn't due until the 13th, then we have a meeting on that Monday. And I also know that this is an issue for Seashell as well. And I just did a little emailing around this morning. I was going to propose that we send in supporting letters and our own submission. So I was going to suggest that it go on the agenda for the 13th, and I will volunteer to work with Andrea Bassett to draft up a submission that we could make as a municipality to the committee, and as well as sending letters saying support of the position. Might have more weight if we actually send it as a municipality
Consent,
directly to the committee. As a municipality, not as an attachment to letters from them.
yeah, so I would, just from a process point of view, I mean, I wouldn't be in support of sending a letter supporting one business. I think it makes sense to support sectors broadly, so it would be, my interpretation would be that it would be a letter coming from municipality to MP Weiler as well as Mr. Arju, I believe is the Minister of Jobs and Employment right now, for the Human Resources Committee. Yeah, the other point that I will make is that it's out of process to get something on the agenda for like 10th, 11th, or 12th. So the agenda review for next agenda happens this Thursday and Friday for validation to the public on Monday. Okay, so you said that you can get something. in the next
Because
few days.
it's what Glenn is referring to is the House of Commons has set up a standing committee. And they're inviting members of the public to submit briefs, no longer than 10 pages, I won't do 10 pages. For consideration and study. And they want those briefs all in by February 13th. So we would have plenty of time to approve a brief. And I've got most of the information already from what was sent to me forwarded by other people that have been involved in doing in dealing with this, so. They've got a whole committee in the Sunshine Coast that's dealing with it.
Right.
So.
Okay, you know, I'm open to that process, just with the caveat that you know, there are files and documents come to council, and then there are several pages of feedback on it, so it's not gonna be a committee of the whole, it's gonna be like, if it's ready to go and we can approve it, but.
I'm used to writing that, so.
Okay. So then there might not be any action needed at this point. I'm assuming that you're gonna propose something that's gonna come up on the agenda.
Yeah, I would just like to propose that we have an item on the agenda for the, what's the next meeting? What's the date? 6th,
February 9th.
February 9th, to include dates to the standing.
Okay, so a motion to postpone this item until February 13th.
No, February 9th.
The deadline is the 13th.
Deadline's the 13th, and our council meeting is on the 9th, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Can we also, since, individual businesses might also want a letter of support, can we just respond today at this meeting and give them some peace of mind that they're gonna get a letter of support so they can refer to it in their letter? Or would it be better to wait on the whole thing?
Open.
I'm assuming he doesn't need to send his letter before the 10th. I certainly would draft a very generic letter of support. And same for the Children's Center, because they're going to be submitting as well.
So you're drafting letters of support as well?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Already, you're drafting individual letters of support for each of the businesses or a broad-based?
But all
This
three.
Okay, so one and then,
One in the standing committee and then a
Okay.
very brief letters
sure.
referring to our submission to go with the letters. The committee, the businesses are sending.
Councilor Gibbons.
So just timing, I'm interested, Glenn is still with us. If there's a resolution and something is approved on the 9th of February, that gives you 4 working days in terms of the deadline for the standing committee in Ottawa. So with all the time zones and everything else, is that sufficient?
Yes, I mean, I'm working on my submission now. I know that Andrea Baskins has given a submission already, so an independent one. So I was going to see if I could gather more letters from other businesses and include them in my submission, but it doesn't have to be all together. We can submit individually, and yes, I can wait until the deadline to
You
submit.
can, on the Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So, motion to, postpone this item pending Councillor,
To the.
pending Councillor Morrison's, draft briefing letters to the, regular council meeting February 9th. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Jurgensen. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries unanimously. Okay, coming to the home stretch, new business, section 11.1, update council on Metro Vancouver business. There was only a regional parks committee meeting held January 14th, 2026. The agenda is attached. The main item on the agenda was to be a revisiting, presenting the annual work plan for the committee, which didn't hold anything crazy exciting. I'm happy to say that camping on Long Island is not the strategic plan for regional parks. But there are lots of other interesting pieces around the region, particularly in relation to the advancing of greenways, as well as continuing to move towards Metro Vancouver's capital plan with parks. And the use of their DCCs, particularly the changing assist factors to fund that. So there's some interesting things happening in regional parks right now. Yes.
Is there any mention of phase 2 of the heritage plan for Davies?
No, there was not. That's something I can take to the general manager of Parks and Environment.
No, maybe not.
And Translate does not have any meetings in January, so I will turn it over to our Islands Trust Municipal Trustees.
Ready to start? Okay, thank you. We had a meeting of the Financial Planning Committee of the Islands Trust last week. And as I mentioned, we were going to do, so I chair that, and Councillor Getty, Trustee Getty was able to make that one, which was great. And the bad news is that right now the increase for the Bowen Island requisition is 32.5%. So it comes to $609.670. And 609,000. Thank you. Yes. And anyway, so this is due to that operational review that the new CAO did. And it's basically 8 years, follows 8 years of deferrals and catching up and using surplus, and now it's catch-up time. So there's another update now that has been added. It was missing from the FPC agenda. So we had just received it earlier that day. That gives a little more detail about the BIM levy. Anyway, that's sort of what's happening now. That goes to we did at that meeting ask staff to bring potential reductions to the Trust Council meeting in March, where Trust Council 26 will vote to approve an agenda and a budget, the following year. They're on the March to March agenda timeline. February 4th is the webinar, Climate Adaptation, Rain Gardens, Practical Steps Landowners Can Take. So this is a community stewardship webinar run through the Islands Trust. You can register online there at islandstrust.bc.ca. And community stewardship awards open this year. They're every 4 years now. So start thinking about people in the community who you would want to recognize and hold up as an example for other islands, and inspire people and recognize community stewardship. Councillor Getty.
I'm on that action-packed finance committee because I'm chair of the governance committee, and we've got a meeting coming up this week, Wednesday, to try and sort out a couple of things with respect to the internal policy. And we've been tasked with going through and combining and tidying and removing and just figuring out which ones are overlapping and such. So it's kind of plodding work, but we're making a few little headways and feeling good about that. So we're trying to figure out in the rest of this term what it is that we want to work on. Things have been changing with respect to the priorities of the trust after this operational report, and there's whether or not that's going to change the work plan of the governance committee. We'll discuss that and we'll put that forward to the trust council to see whether they agree with our work plan. We also have another group that was formed with the CAO to try and figure out what the that I'm involved with, and that's Thursday morning, and that's onboarding the new trustees and what kind of training and what kind of work things we want to sort out. So instead of plan with the people coming in and talking and presenting big binders full of written materials and trying to figure out how to improve on that and make it so that it's memorable. So I'm going to be suggesting that we do some pretty solid role plays on this functional councils and see how that perks things up a little bit. Anyway, we'll see whether or not we're going to have. Well, there's some discussions in terms of an increase in the budget. And so I'm digging my heels in and working as hard as I can to decrease the budget. So I think we'll be working with whatever we've got on hand and trying to figure out how to make it so that it's more rememberable.
Yeah.
That's this week.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm on that committee too, and if I can just follow up, I'm the chair of that financial planning committee, which sometimes I get point of ordered by the other members because they think I'm going to talk about things that are in the future, and I'm going, but we're planning, etc. Anyway, I also tried to bring up some calculation things about the municipal levy. I went deep into it's in our protocol agreement as Schedule D. If you really want to see the full calculation, it's in there. And I asked some questions of their Julie Mobbs, the head of administration and finance over there. And so I've got the different percentages of the different location codes of the budget and all that kind of thing. And I tried, well, anyway, I opened some lines of inquiry and I didn't go far. But I've also been trying to decrease that amount without starving the Islands Trust Conservancy. Which is, I mean, those people ride their bicycles through ferry terminals to save time and money, and they'll continue doing that. So work is underway, but it's very challenging with the operational review that the new CAO did, and this Trust Council supported that at the December meeting. So we're working with different numbers.
I wanted to add that we're also reaching the deadline for community input on the policy statement, and our report from staff and your letter, Mayor Leonard, has reached all the members of the council. And there's a lot of chatter in the emails in terms of both, and they have sent out, staff have sent out letters to all the local groups and added to a long list of people to remind them that there's a deadline. If there are going to be submissions, please get them in. So there's lots of clippings that we've been getting and heard some chat and stuff. So lots of reaction.
With respect to the budget, I mean, it was 391,000 in 2024 and 460,000 in 2025, and now it's 690,000. So it's really going up there. Is there going to be any public information sent out? I read the November minutes and the November agenda, and it appeared that there was to be some sort of notice sent out today to the public about the budget, asking for input.
Through the chair, I'm not, I don't think we're doing budget input this year. We haven't done it except for last year, for a period of a few years before that. The trouble is, we would ask people to do all this work, look at the budget, and then the timing was so poor that it would come in at the absolute deadline when we had to sort of pass the budget, because we only meet 4 times a year. So this year, instead, we did a pre-budget survey. So that was back in June, and we discussed that at our August meeting. So we've already done public budget input as far as we could do. And now these changes happened in December, and our next meeting is March. So there's not a lot of opportunity for the public to weigh in through. It was also very time consuming for staff. So we were looking at that as part of the operational review as well. However, anybody can always send emails to the Islands Trust. There's a budget at email, or send them to me, and I'll make sure that they go into the proper process for anybody who's interested and wants to make a comment.
There was a document in the November agenda that did talk about a timeline for a budget referral after starting today. And I didn't see anything in the minutes that said it wasn't going to happen, so I'll follow up.
I thought there was a communication plan that was for information that was going to be sent out. And that's the whole thing in terms of updating the little pictures of the houses.
Oh,
and
yeah,
all of
that's
that.
right. I
So
think there's gonna be something goes into the undercurrent.
I don't know
Yeah.
about input.
I think it's
other than-
information.
Well, if it goes out for information, then it gives you people the information to provide the input.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah, there's info. going
There's
to be
not gonna be
provided.
anything formalized in terms of meetings and talking heads and, election charts and all the rest of it. There's gonna be something mailed out and.
Yeah,
emailed
Committee
at-
of the whole on February 18th.
Yes.
Yeah.
32% is a not to swallow.
Especially when it's only 5 or 6 or less from the others.
I'll be curious to dig into the budget documents. Is there any sort of commensurate level of presence or service or resources that Bowen Island will see as a result of that? I mean, I look at it from the point of view of residents. If we went out on the street and said, you support a 32% increase in your Islands Trust tax levy, I'm just, unless there's like a really great explanation, I'm not quite sure we'll find broad support for that on our own.
Well, it's a challenge to say, it's like saying, what does the government of Canada do for you, right? It's a broad list. I've got an A to Z, like 26 practical hands-on things that they do on Bowen Island. And it's everything from defending the trust policy statement to.
I understand that, but in terms of like a differential between what we're paying this year and what we're paying next year, like what do we get out of it? You know, I imagine, like I put myself in the seat of like if this council levied 32% onto its property tax holders, you know, we would certainly be accountable for justifying that increase in terms of on the ground program services offered. If Metro Vancouver did the same thing, or if TransLink did the same thing, I think there would be an equal sort of outcry or a desire to understand where that funding is going, and that's I don't. So that's just my question. It's like, you know, for 32%, like, what are we going to see as a result of that? Or does it just get sucked into general administration across the trust?
Well, some of it goes to trust council and the running of the whole part of the government, the statutory side of it, right?
Yeah.
And part of it goes to trust area services, which includes the Bowen Island Conservancy. So you can think about it as the federation arm, which does everything from like weighing in on the Metro Vancouver's OCP amendment for camping. They said, no, this does not fit. It's not compliant with the directive policies of the Islands Trust. And the same happened earlier with when BC Timber Sales came here to do the logging. They weighed in. They were one of the parties probably that weighed in, but they weighed in. They defend Bowen. And then at the other side, sorry, is the biodiversity stewardship sort of side. So this is where you've got the 3 nature reserves on Bowen and a couple of conservation covenants. And that's everything from Singing Woods up here, Fairy Fen Nature Reserve, and another one called David Otter Nature Reserve, and a couple of conservation covenants that get followed up. So all those are 2 examples of the 2 arms, and there's lots of other things as well that happen in there, including advocacy and the awards and webinars that we're talking about. And so there, it's very hard to describe. I'm looking at a page here that goes Infosystems, Finance, Bylaw, Director, that some of these Bowen does not pay into. We only pay in to the Federation of Islands side of it and the conservation arm, those 2 arms. And how it plays out on the ground and what people might recognize here on Bowen is hard because the Islands Trust has very little visibility outside of these presentations at the ends of council meetings.
Yeah, I honestly think that we should, demand somebody come and trust it. Like it is a tall order in an election year to levy a 32% tax increase on an island without like a communication that this is what this is going to go into, this is what it's going to support, this is tangibly what we're contributing to. I think it's gonna generate some conversation certainly out in the community. Councilor Getty, followed by Councilor Lake.
So one of the things that stood out on the budget, first of all, it's 32%. That is a really high number to swallow. But at the same time, it's a 32% increase because we've got this, it's this strange way of calculating things. So because we're not dealing with any of the bylaw and legal expenses, because we're not dealing with any of the planning, because we're not dealing with a lot of the significant issues for big islands like Saltburn. So those are calculated. There's one chart in there in terms of all the things that relate to Bowen. So in terms of us being this little tiny corner of the budget, all of the things that we're interested in terms of the conservancy and one of the big items this year is this election. So my suggestion was that we start that we haven't done before. If that's 200,000, that's like a 2 full-time staff position expense. And it's like, let's set aside reserves so that nobody in the future is dealing with that $200,000 jump. That's a good chunk of this increase. And then onboarding all the new people on whether or not, all these laptops that we get, they're only on a 4-year warranty. So a lot of them have to be replaced and all the rest of it. So, and it's updates to all of the computer software programs that have come due. And it's all of the increase that we got from the BCGU, most of the staff are, but we don't pay for the planning staff, but there's other staff that are part of that. So that's the mandated. And we're still only getting 118,000. Bowen pays 5 times what the province puts in, which I think that's really criminal myself. If we're supposed to all be representing the Federation, all the population of BC, then, and they keep sending us letters back that, we ask the craziest questions in our letters to the minister, but they keep sending back like, you've got the power, do it yourself and look after things. But the basic funding is really a problem. And, if they're downloading so that all of these little rural islands that don't have industry and only have property tax bases, then it is painful. And, we can support the Federation, it can support this conservancy and support a lot of the principles. But it's still hard. So, it looks like a big number. I'm told that it boils down to like $50 to $60 increase per average household. So that it's, in line with a lot of other agencies in terms of our budget. Our budget, it might not be that 32%, might be much smaller. The other thing is that the Federation has decided that it's really important that we work on putting the whole issue of recognition, both in terms of a lot of the feedback that's coming in the community from some of the court decisions and how that's sort of raising the issue to some sort of a demand level. And we've got one senior policy advisor who simply can't deal with all the different 30 groups and can't deal with all of the comments that come in and can't deal with a lot of the issues. So it's figuring out how to get a full-time senior advisor, one full-time position, and the Conservancy also wants to have more money to be able to organize events so that the communities can participate. So it's venues and catering and all of that. So they're putting money into that, putting money into the senior advisors. And that is considered a priority. The other thing that came out of the operation review was that we really need to, and I know this from being the head of the governance committee, we really need to sort out having a proper communications program. And we've got somebody that puts clippings in the mail and in the mail clippings in our emails on a regular basis, but we don't have anything formalized in terms of how to deal with all of the criticism, how to deal with all of the misinformation that comes down the pipe. So, you know, a lot of the there's a whole lot of stuff that's going on in terms of letters to the minister and letters to, you know, I don't want to say the names of the groups, but it's really hard to deal with it on a one-on-one basis and sort of ad hoc. And we really need to have some help, professional help in terms of getting on top of the problems that we've got with communication, both with respect to housing, which, you know, is really hard to find solutions for as a regional district and as small islands. And it's, you know, it's a larger problem than just the Islands Trust, but that's the biggest criticism we get on a regular basis. That, you know, because we have control over land use planning, that somehow or other we're opening it up and welcoming, you know, large scale development. Meanwhile, there's no, I mean, Salt Springs got people living in shacks. They've got shanty towns that are worse off than anything that I ever saw in Hong Kong, and it's absurd. So yes, there's problems, but, you know, whether or not it's all at the trust's feet is, you know, something that really needs to get some control over in terms of the communication. So those are the two, and what we're wrestling with is trying to figure out if any of that can be combined. So what the Conservancy wants and what's the Trust Council wants, you know, in terms of all of the good, solid recommendations for reconciliation, there could be tons more. And this is what we're considering to be really fundamental, to start digging into. The minister on the one hand says that you could be the guiding light in this. You could figure out a whole bunch of things. You've got some really good agreements with local organizations. So step up to it and, you know, take responsibility for it. Yeah, okay. You know, let's get some contributions to this. Nope, can't do that. And they've got $1 billion deficit. So we're not expecting to have more money from the province, but we are getting a lot of these expectations. So it's the sad part for me is that there's a decision made at the December conference to not renew a grant. It was unfortunate that we were very successful with a grant application that got a full-time biologist, and we don't have the funds to continue that service. And there's, you know, all the grant opportunities are dropping too. So we had $429,000 worth of grants, and this year it's $69,000. And I've asked the question, I'm not sure if we're not making applications or everything's just drying up in terms of grants. Could be a bit of both. So the income is greatly reduced, and the desires and the needs and the great ideas are constant and growing. And we're left with this really hard thing. Does Bowen Island support the work that the Federation can do as some sort of a guiding light with respect to, you know, how to keep an environmentally protective community, preserve and protect with all of the interests that are in it. So You know, that's the really bitter pill that we have to figure out how to swallow. Seems we want it, but it's really hard to digest that big number, 32%.
I think it misreads the room. I'm gonna go with Councilor Wade, Councilor Saunders, Councilor Morrison.
So I think what Mayor Leonard is getting at here, what we're all getting at, the question is, I mean, sure, you know, they need all this money for all those things. But what we're talking about here is the differential. How much does Salt Spring pay?
Well, they're huge. They got, you know, double the people that all the planet, and they have a new office. I think there's 1 million.
We could probably get the Director of Financial and Employee Services, Julia Mons, to come talk to us at the next meeting if you like. And I'd be happy to suggest that. At the last meeting, she sent me an email. At today's meeting, I noticed Trustee Getty's comment. So perhaps I can read a little bit from her email. She may be watching us right now, and she can correct me if I'm wrong. The question of the BIM levy being higher than what the province contributes to the Islands Trust is true, but it's not unique or unusual. Same for all the islands. They all pay more except for the two smallest, which are probably Lasqueti and the Trust Area Islands, which have like 2 people living on them. And pay more than the province. The funding model in the act set up such that we collect our primary revenue through taxes, property taxes from each local trust area and island municipalities, and that is what we see. In addition, although BIM is the second largest area in the trust in terms of property value holdings, they are not contributing the second largest amount due to the fact that you're not paying for planning services. You only pay towards 1/3 of administrative costs as well. If it helps, 6 local trust areas are paying more than Bowen Island Municipality in property taxes. 1 is paying almost exactly the same, and 5 are lower. The 5 paying less collectively only hold 10.3% of the property value in the trust area. Compared to Bowen's, we hold 16.5% of the property value in the whole Islands Trust area. And that's what the calculation is based on, is on property values.
Those other islands don't, they don't have, like you say, okay, we're not paying for planning. Well, we're paying for planning. We're paying for it here. You know, they're not doing our planning. So
We don't contribute to their costs. They don't contribute to our costs. Through the chair, how would you like to proceed? This is turning into, yeah.
But I mean, it's like, it's fair, like, again, if any of our regional entities sought to increase taxes by 32%, you know, especially given on Bowen Island, especially the community opinion poll that happened at the last election, like this, it's just I find it interesting. I have a motion because I think we, you know, I do, I don't want to put the responsibility of this on our municipal island trustees here, because I don't think that's fair, but I would like to invite staff here to justify and explain, walk us through some of these expenses.
Yeah, good, thank you.
But I will finish the speaker's queue here, so going over to Councillor Sanders.
Thanks. I don't really, through the chair, I don't really need an answer to this, but just a couple of comments. One is, when we say, well, it's only $50 or $60 a household, that's doesn't matter. I mean, $60 here, $60 there, pretty soon you're talking about real money. And so I don't follow that argument very well, but more importantly, I think something that Councillor Getty said is vital to getting some kind of understanding of this when you talk about the need for communications. I'm astounded that somebody isn't in front of us actually professionally communicating why it's 32% increase. And because the mayor's comments are correct, like this is really hard to justify for us because nobody's telling us really what it's for. Like Councillor Fastly would say, well, got a list of 80. That's great. And I'm sure the trust and yourself certainly are working really hard at this kind of thing, but when we talk about, we're going up 32%, we're going up this number of dollars from last year. So never mind the total services, what's the increase in services we're getting for that? How much better, are we 32% better in the services we're getting? Because nobody can communicate that. And I think the trust really needs to be able to communicate that, particularly to people like us. And well, to anybody else, to any taxpayer. You know, we really need to understand. It's not so much the 32% is what am I getting for it? Not the overall services. I was getting them last year too. But why do they cost 32%? Well, you were underpaying last year. Okay, well, that may or may not be true, but tell us that. You know, or we're adding this number of things for you. That may or may not be true, but tell us that. And then, of course, you did mention one of the things that's just, you know, decreased revenue, which just means, you know, you can't decrease revenue. You're decreasing grants. You make up for them from us. So anyway, I would encourage much better communication on this kind of thing. I know you guys can't answer all these questions right now, and that's fine, but much better communications from senior management there. Thank you.
Councilor Summers, Councilor Morris.
This is going on.
I thought like Councilor.
I hate this website, to be honest with you. I've been trying to find a policy that Craig Elder and I developed years ago that shows the allocation and the account flows and stuff. There's an operations statement in here, which I can't relate to that because it doesn't give the account codes. It's just got a whole bunch of check marks for the bin contribution. And yeah, the province doesn't pay for, the province should be paying for all the conservancy. Money, all the properties pursuant to the legislation, they all trust that belong to the province. So why don't we just, as several people have said to me, don't just say to the province, here, they're yours, you look after them and walk away. Or tell the province to give them all the land conservancy or something. It's ridiculous. And when we first incorporated, our requisition was $65,000.
Councilor Jurgensen.
I agree with a lot of what's been said around the table. We really need to have the information to be able to explain to the average Bowen Islander why the 32% difference, but I appreciate the work the trustees have also put in on all this and look forward to, you know, hearing from staff from Islands Trust in the presentation on this.
Okay, so I'm going to put a motion on the floor. I move the council direct staff to invite Islands Trust staff to appear as a delegation to provide rationale and justification for the rationale and justification for the proposed 32% tax levy on Bowen Island at the future regular meeting of council. Second by Councilor Jurgensen. Any discussion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
And that carries unanimously. Finally, moving to question period.
Sorry, can I ask one more question of staff? So have there been conversations with Director Motts?
Certainly she and I correspond from time to time, mostly by email. I don't feel that I'm informed enough in a position to try and communicate to council and our community what are behind those changes. So I would welcome hearing it direct from staff themselves. I think they're best positioned to provide that information to council and to the community.
Through the mayor, I also spoke to my CEO counterpart at Islands Trust this morning, right before council, to indicate some of the needs for information that our community requires from them, just so they know and are aware of it as they move forward through their deliberations and processes. So everything that we're discussing here, they're aware of it. And more so, I think there's other aspects of this that need to be taken into account. You know, as Bowen moves closer to that 5,000 threshold of policing, where we have to pay 75% of our policing costs I think that's unique to Bowen in the Islands Trust area. I don't think the other, I have to do some research to see if they also have to pay those, if there's others in that same situation, but it's gonna put an additional financial strain on us, as we move closer to that threshold.
They don't pay, they pay policing costs on their individual property tax notices, just like we do now. There's a line that the province charges everybody. I can explain that to you. I was part of that committee of Metro when they did that, and that's divvied up on the basis of population and tax values. But that's been around for 10 years.
Quick question, did everybody get a 32% increase or?
No, it's 3 to 6 or
No,
something
it's-
with the others.
Yeah, it's differential. So it's in the financial report there. Yeah, I just know that, you know, the other regional tables I sit at, that both Bears Council and Metro Vancouver, I mean, there's very long and hard discussions about even, you know, adjusting household impact by $10. And, you know, Metro Vancouver started with, at the start of this term, their financial plans were projecting 9 to 11% tax increases, and they've gotten them down to 2%. TransLink, you know, battled hard with the province and fought against any property tax increases. Both of those organizations did operational reviews and cut tens of millions of dollars out of their operation. Which is why this feels out of step and it's an existing sentiment within our sentiments within our community. And you know, I think the fact that it's not our job as a municipal council to justify the levies, that it does need some more professional representation from the trust here before council to be able to answer those questions. So moving on to question period, I'll look to the throngs in the gallery.
Did you have a motion?
We didn't
Did we vote?
We don't vote yet? I thought you voted.
No. Oh, I think we did.
We did
Yeah, we
vote.
did.
Yeah, it was voted. and-
I voted.
Oh, that's right.
unanimously. Yeah,
Invite
You
Islands.
guys not vote?
Thank you.
We can sit around here and vote again if everyone's
Let's discuss it again.
no,
It just
so
went so fast, I couldn't write fast.
looking at question period, is there anyone online that's looking to answer questions? A motion to adjourn, moved by Councilor Getty, seconded by Councilor Jurgensen. All in favor, you can say aye. We are adjourned for I think 6 minutes. I think we got a relatively short close.